Hi there, this is your fantastic Arif, and I welcome you all to an amazing series of my podcast, Ring the Bell, to alarm our present for our future. We all are facing climate change issues. Some acknowledge these issues and some don't. Those who acknowledge these issues try to get the solutions. In this Ring the Bell series, I will bring you stories of those people who are forerunners in discovering the solutions to make this earth healthy for each and every one of us. So let's get started. If we are to know more about the role played by global politics for a better climate, no one is better to enlighten us about this topic than our today's guest. He is an eminent global leader on environment and development. He also has worked as an experienced peace negotiator. He served as a Norwegian Minister of Environment and in international development from 2005 to 2012. He is none other than the astounding Erik Solheim. Mr. Solheim has been the chair of OECD Development Assistance Committee, the main body of world donors, as well as executive director of UN Environment. He led the peace efforts in Sri Lanka as the main negotiator of the peace process and played a pivotal role in peace efforts in Nepal, Myanmar, and Sudan. Currently, he is a senior advisor at World Resource Institute and convener of the Global Coalition for Green Belt and Road, and serves as the CEO of the Plastic Revolution Foundation. He is also an advisor to Singapore-based April or RGE and co-chair of Tree Lion, an Asian green blockchain company. He is also a member of the Green Party in Norway. Hi, Alexa. Hope you are doing great. It is my great privilege to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be on this podcast. I'm really privileged to speak to you as well as to many young people in India and beyond.
Sir, it would be our pleasure to know more about your work directly from you.
As you said, I'm Erik Solheim, and I spent more or less my entire life working on environment, on development for poor people, and on peace. And I see all these three as very, very much of the same. If you don't have peace, it's very, very hard to develop. And of course, it's much more difficult to sort out environment issues. While at the same time, massive climate change and environment destruction may make it more likely that we get into wars. So we need to handle all these three together. And we are now in a very, very hopeful spot. We have the once-in-a-generation chance to handle climate issues and to handle the nature crisis. But the main issue is if we can work together. The main nations of the world, China, the United States, India, and Europe, if we all work together, we will be able to resolve these major challenges.
I'm amazed to know about the work you have done. It is really inspirational. Sir, I have heard a lot about your work to clean the plastic waste through Plastic Revolution Foundation. It would be wonderful if you could share about this initiative with our audience.
Plastic pollution is a major global crisis. I mean, it affects us in so many ways. For instance, of course, plastic is a main threat to wildlife. Whales or seabirds or fishes or even camels and cows eat plastic. Seabirds believe it's food, and they even feed the chicks with plastics and killing their own children. It's also a major economic issue for many parts of the world. I mean, where are the people who want to go to the beautiful beaches of Bali or wherever, if it are full of plastics. And adding to all this, it's a major health issues. We get plastics into our bodies when we eat fish, or when we breathe air, or when we drink water, and we get nanoplastics and microplastic into our bodies. So this issue we need to stop. We cannot continue to throw plastics into nature and destroy Mother Earth. Fortunately, we know how to solve the problem. I can come back to how we do it. And you see any number of young people standing up fighting the plastic menace. I mean, in India, for instance, a young lawyer in the great city of Mumbai, Afro Shah, he was one day standing at his veranda, looking down to his beach, and he saw these horrible plastic pollutions, basically 1/2 meter hard-packed plastics, because no one will go for a walk at the beach, no fishermen will catch the fish there, and no one will play cricket or soccer working on it. And now he has created the biggest beach cleanup operation in human history. Hundreds of thousands of people have been engaged in cleaning the beaches of Mumbai, India, and restoring the beauty of this fantastic shoreline.
I'm awestruck after major actions taken by you to curb down on plastic, which is present in air, water, and even in the bodies of aquatic animals in various places affected by the plastic pollution, like the beaches of Mumbai, as you said. Sir, we often hear about single-use plastic ban. Do you think it is sufficient action to save our earth, or we should completely look for an alternative of plastic to banish it?
Look, plastic is a very useful material. That's why we have been so over-addicted to plastics. When in the early days, plastic came into the market, it was seen as a miracle material. People were celebrating all over the world because of this fantastic miracle material. And we also seen during the pandemic crisis that plastic has been essential to solving problems in the healthcare. I mean, masks have been made partly from plastics, and of course, protecting material in the health service has been made by plastic. So it's not possible to make an all-out ban on plastics, but we need to fight it in 3 different ways. First, let's look to all those plastic materials we don't need. many plastics we don't need. I mean, cannot we drink from a normal cup like our parents and grandparents all have done? Why do we need a plastic cup to drink our Coke or our tea? Can't we have our meals without plastic cutlery? Can't we celebrate Diwali or Christmas or New Year without sending up balloons which end up in nature and are eaten by animals? Let's look into all those materials we cannot, we can do without, and let's ban them. That's, by the way, what's happening. The European Union now made a list of plastic items which will be banned in Europe. In India, we have seen many states making similar decisions. I recall once I was trying to buy plastic cutlery in the state of Maharashtra. And the guy in the shop said, no. If you want that, you go to another state. You don't sell it here. So it's banned. So that's first, let's ban what you don't need. Then secondly, let's look for alternatives. Can we make plastic from potatoes or sugarcane or from cassava, or from other natural products? Because then we can make plastic which degenerate in nature. If you throw away a banana skin in the forests of India, it will disappear very fast. If you can make plastics which disappear that fast, it will have no major harm to nature and will be a much better product. And finally, and most importantly, we need to recycle all the plastics we do need, and we cannot make alternatives in the short term. They must be brought in and they must be recycled. Because today you can recycle plastic into new plastic, you can get the bottles into new bottles. You can make sometimes also, if that's more difficult, you can make fuel from plastics, which can replace other fuels. So recycling is very essential, but for recycling to happen, governments need to regulate markets. At the end of the day, those companies who push plastic into the market, I mean, whether they are the plastic producers or the oil companies or the Coca-Cola or Nestle of this world, they need to solve the problem. That's the polluter pay principle, which we use in any other context. If you are polluting the world, you need to pay for the solution. And governments need to make extended producer responsibility in India, in Europe, in America, everywhere, so that the companies who produce the plastic in and getting it recycled. For sure, this is doable. We just need brave, visionary political leaders to do it, and the market and the companies to respond.
As you said, plastic was seen as a miracle before and is still seen today. But now it is harming our environment. At the same time, we cannot ban all the plastics, which would lead to a huge loss to our economy. It would be rather wise to curb down the plastic we can reduce, like single-use plastic, make alternative out of these plastics, and also recycle them. This would require a major role of government all around the world, but I'm sure being optimistic would surely make it doable.
No, I remember that when I went into politics in Norway some decades back, the two main environment problems of the day were the hole in the ozone layer, and it was acid rain. I still recall also Barack Obama told me that story when he spoke at a meeting in the United States. That, hey, when I was a young politician starting in politics, it was about acid rain. It was about the hole in the ozone layer. And as I said, no one is talking about these issues any longer. Why is that? My daughters, he said, are not interested. It's because they're resolved. The hole in the ozone layer is coming back. There's no major problem anymore. And acid rain has diminished in most of the world. So exactly in the same way, we can solve the plastic menace as we solve the hole in the ozone layer. And you need three components: young people like yourself and your mother, everyone else, mobilizing, speaking about it, telling that we don't want to live this way any longer, to mobilize people for action. Secondly, great leaders like, say, Prime Minister Modi, to regulate the markets and set the direction. And thirdly, the companies, say in Indian context, the Tatas or Reliance, to invent and make the new technologies we do need.
Well said, sir, that the role of the government is essential for regulating the market, tell the companies and corporates to develop new technologies for curbing down the plastic. I'm sure with more countries joining hands together for curbing down these plastic emissions, we can and we will reduce the number of plastic we use today. Sir, I'm eager to know that how can global politics change the world in a sustainable way?
I'm very optimistic now because we are at the junction when all the major leaders of the world are going in a green direction. Starting in China, which is the biggest emitter when it comes to climate, President Xi Jinping in September said that China will go carbon neutral by 2060, and it will peak its emissions in the 2020s. This is a major step by China, and you immediately see the effect, which is all the provinces of China, but some of them are much bigger than nations in the rest of the world. I mean, big provinces, cities of 20 million people, companies like Alibaba or Tencent or Huawei, the big Chinese companies, all of them saying, no, we need to change, we need to find a new direction, and you see China moving very fast. Then in the United States, of course, Joe Biden was just elected president, such a sea change from the past. He will invest heavily in renewable energies. He's reconnected the United States to the Paris Agreement, and he stopped some of the oil pipelines to Canada. Really taken major action on climate just in his few weeks in office. In India, Prime Minister Modi has formed the International Solar Alliance, and India is in the forefront of solar industries. I mean, the price of solar in India is now the lowest everywhere in the world. India is the first all-solar rail station in the world in Assam, the first all-solar airport in the world in Kerala, and in your city, in Delhi, the metro will soon get lots of energy from the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. solar again. So we see India moving very, very fast. I mean, in the past, all development in India was basically based on coal. Now we will see solar and wind and other energies taking the center stage. And in Europe, of course, the European Union has decided that Green New Deal will be the way out of the crisis. That's how we will create new jobs and prosperity after the pandemic crisis. And of course, when China, US, India, Europe all work together and go in the same direction, you will see a major change. But there is one factor underpinning all this, that is that we have a new environment model, a new development model. Early it was very, very clear. First you pollute, then you clean up. When you are poor, you pollute so that you can get rich, and when you get rich, you start cleaning up the mess. That was in reality, it was the only way of the past, because if you wanted to develop fast in the 19th to 20th century, you needed to use coal and oil. Now in the 21st century, it's not any longer necessary. You can develop very, very fast based on renewables. And that's what you see also in India, where Prime Minister Modi repeatedly is speaking about the importance of renewable energies and solar, because of course he doesn't want to keep India poor. He wants India to move very, very fast in the right direction. But now you can integrate ecology and economy into one way forward. And you can get any number of jobs in renewable industries, in electric transport, in environment-friendly green tourism, and so many other areas. And of course, the transformation also of agriculture in a greener direction.
Global politics has surely played a major role in eradicating diseases, halting wars, and it has been a game changer during unprecedented times of COVID-19. Taking these examples in the context, I'm optimistic that global politics can discover more solutions to tackle the climate change. And more nations will take inspiration from the sustainable models in countries like India, US, Norway, and other superpowers. And you're absolutely right, sir, that under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, India has flourished in the field of renewable energy by carrying out ambitious projects for solar power all over the country. India is now emerging as one of the top 5 global solar superpowers. I'm sure that we will be achieving more in renewable energy in the future. So, according to you, what kind of effective policies should be created by policymakers to take actions against climate change?
Number one is the energy transformation. We need to make it more expensive, more difficult to pollute, and then coal and oil very fast will disappear, and we will base our future energy on solar, on wind, on hydro, and a number of other renewable energies. And of course, you need to make the grid so that this can happen. So it will be a mixture of government intervention, maybe pricing carbon emissions, and then the private sector driving all these major changes. Secondly, transport. Indian cities tend to be quite polluted, and there are a number of reasons for that, but one of them is very polluting, sometimes very old fleet of cars. If that can be changed into a fleet of environment-friendly cars and also improved public transport, you will see immediate effect on the life of people, less pollution in Delhi or other Indian cities, but they're also very, very good for climate change. Here in Norway, now more than close to 60% of all new cars sold are electric. India has made some major steps in electrifying the auto rickshaws, or the tuk-tuks as they call them in many other parts of the world. But still, the number of electric cars in India is low, but that needs to increase, and need to increase fast. Adding to electric cars, public transport is essential. A few years back, there was hardly any metros in India. I mean, Kolkata, I think, got an metro in the 1980s, something like that. And we had some initial metro lines in Delhi, but very few others. Now, 18 Indian cities, in accordance with the statistics, are established in metro. Just a month back, Prime Minister was inaugurating the work on the Agra metro. So you see a lot is happening, but of course this needs to be speeded up. Thirdly, and added to transport and energy, green solutions, tree planting is very essential. China is now the world leader in tree planting, greening the surface of the planet. They have the best expertise in making deserts going green from Inner Mongolia, and have some major tree planting efforts. I think India can also learn from that, and so can we in Europe. And the transformation of agriculture into more environment-friendly products is very essential. Here, India has a huge opportunity also because India is the most vegetarian nation in the world. We will not all go vegetarian, but we need to eat a little bit less meat on the planet. And since India has such a long, strong tradition in vegetarianism, it can also lead the world in making all the vegetables and green products from agriculture, which we need, and use less fertilizer and less energy in the agriculture production. I was involved for quite some time in Andhra Pradesh, where they have what they call zero input farming, which is really to use all the leftovers from farming as fertilizer into the new, so that we get a very environment-friendly agriculture system. If you add up all this, energy use, transport, tree planting, agriculture, and you may add also industries like cement and steel and others, you have the main issues for the green direction, and we will be able to solve the climate problem. It's not easy, but it's for sure doable.
You have stated wonderful ways to get us out of the climate crisis, like energy transformation, price on carbon emissions, improving transportation policies, and transforming the agriculture. But nothing can be achieved if we do not implement the solutions. So, Mr. Solheim, what would be your guide to improve implementation of policies on a global level, and how global politics will lead the way towards implementation?
First of all, this starts at the local level and in every nation. Wherever you have the choice, please vote for the green politician. The greener the political leaders are, whether that's in the Delhi metropolitan government, or whether it's in the state of Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, or at the Indian national level, or globally, I always advocate young people, please figure out what are the candidates' promises and history on green issues, and vote for the green political leaders. If you have green political leaders and they come together globally, there is no limit to what they can achieve. And here we can take history as the guidance, because we tend to forget that in the past we solved very big issues. I think of one of the maybe biggest in Indian history, when Mahatma Gandhi came back from South Africa around 1920. No one thought it was possible to take on the British Empire. British Empire of the time was so powerful, so strong, much stronger than, say, the United States or China is today. It was the most powerful nation probably ever existed in the world. And then this lawyer from Gujarat picked the fight, did it with non-violent means, and in 3 decades he was absolutely successful and established independent India. But that's just one example. 200 years back, slavery was normal all around the world. Muslims said that, oh, this is in the Quran, we need to have slaves. Christians said, well, this is in the Bible, God told us to have slaves. And some economists say in London say, oh, no, the British Empire will go down and under if it allow slavery to stop. Then again, some young people at the time in the United Kingdom, later, of course, the great American president, Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest political leaders of any time, they took up the fight and they won. And today there is no slavery nowhere in the world. Some people are living under very difficult circumstances for sure, but nowhere you can send the police to arrest your slave and bring him back. And I can give any number of examples. In modern times, of course, we have seen an enormous reduction of poverty everywhere in the world, a great progress on many issues. I mean, first time I came to India in the 1980s, there were hundreds of thousands of polio cases in India, hundreds of thousands. For the last 7 years, not one, zero. And that's where, I mean, so many young people's lives who were either dying or getting major handicaps, destroyed their life. It stopped. One of the persons who contributed to this was my great friend Harsh Vardhan, who's currently the Minister of Health in India, but he was not alone, and it was successful. So the power of humans to change the world, if we stand up and fight for what's right, and if we join hands and come together globally, it's so big. So let's not worry. It's up to ourselves to do it. We can.
You have really enlightened us with your knowledge, and I completely agree that we should be voting the right candidates who support environmental solutions to tackle climate change and be determined to change the world. Sir, what are your views on Paris Agreement? Will policymakers be able to achieve this global initiative? Are policymakers even willing to achieve it? And are the actions taken by them sufficient?
The Paris Agreement is a major achievement, and we should really pay tribute to all the leaders who made this great declaration. Recall, I was in Copenhagen, that was 2009. That was the first big climate conference, and then again in Paris in 2015. Copenhagen was an absolute disaster. Achieved nothing, made even the global atmosphere worse, because those who were in the lead at the time didn't understand the realities of the world. They thought it was enough just to bring a few Western leaders together, and they don't invite neither China nor India into the real conversation. And then surprise, surprise, I mean, the Chinese and the Indians didn't like that. They wanted to be center stage, and entire process broke down in Copenhagen. Then Mexico and other nations picked it up, and France did great in Paris, and also so did Cristina Figueres in Costa Rica, who was the leader of the convention at the time. So they made a fantastic agreement in Paris. Is it sufficient? Absolutely no. Is it a huge step forward? Yes, indeed. So we are now on the right track, but the main issue is speed. We are moving in the right direction in the world. Emissions will go down, and we will get a lot more electric cars, better solar energy, all this is for sure. What is needed is urgency and speed, because if we don't act very resolutely and fast, we will still have major negative impacts over climate change. If we act with the resoluteness of which they wanted to, the fathers and mothers of the Paris Agreement want us to act, we will speed up, and then we will be much more successful. So it's a good agreement, not sufficient, but we need to act fast.
Paris Agreement is a one hard global commitment, which requires the will of the policymakers to achieve it. On ground, we are seeing some major actions, but still, we are yet to see the implementation of commitment towards this agreement by most of the policymakers. This should be the world's first priority, as no danger is greater than climate change. Sir, do you think that climate protection can be an agenda for the parties in the future elections? How would this benefit us?
Absolutely, and I think a lot more has happened in the last year than in long periods before that. The Russian revolutionary Lenin once said that there are decades where nothing is happening, and then there are years where decades are happening. And 2020, the pandemic year, I think was a year where decades happened in just 1 year. Because the world is now completely changed. Business all over the world has got the message, understand the need to change. And the main political leaders of the day, President Biden and President Xi, Prime Minister Modi, Chancellor Merkel, President Macron, they're all united in the message that we need to change. But I think maybe the most important change is business. remind yourself what happened under Trump in the United States. He took the United States out of the Paris Agreement. All the big companies in America said, no, we disagree with you, Mr. President. This is not the right thing to do. We believe climate change is real and we need to act. And maybe the most amazing is Microsoft. They have promised to curb all the carbon emissions by 2030 and go carbon negative. They have promised to even compensate for all emissions in the history of the company. They also, by the way, promised to be a non-plastic company. And similar pledges have been made by Apple, who will invest heavily in windmills in Europe and other places. Amazon, who will create a fleet of 100,000 electric vehicles for the utility transport. By the way, Biden will make also state utility in America's American states electric. So there is a sea change now coming, driven by visionary leaders like Xi, Biden, and Modi, but also driven by the power of the market and business. Also in China, I've been into many leaders there, and in India, you see great business leaders like, say, Anil Mahindra driving the change. Tata is on the change. Reliance, all the kind of the big companies of India also understand that this is a time for change, and I'm sure they will contribute the technologies and the brain power and understand the scale of change which is needed.
Many parties of different countries are doing so. But if more parties start making climate protection as their agenda, then this will not only change the condition of environment, but also make the people aware of the fact that climate change as a political agenda does require the actions. Sir, in your opinion, is this the time that we need youth climate activists to enter into politics for the betterment of the environment?
Absolutely, that's the way the world will change. It's like people like you are out, but I'm quite a lot on the internet, on Twitter, and other social media, and I get so many responses from young people, in particular in India, who want to change their environment. They are doing tree planting, or they are doing sit-ins for the climate, or they join environment groups, or they try to influence the political leaders. This is how change is happening. If we look to change in the past, it happened when young people, the people at large, were demanding change, saying we cannot live this way any longer, we need change. And then you see business leaders taking to scale the changes because they believe that the market demands it. And then you see political leaders changing because the voters want change and they want to be with the people. So there is no way change will happen just by itself. We cannot be lazy and sit back and say, oh, it will all change. No, we need to fight for it every day, wherever we are. But then we'll also see this major green shift now, turning the planet in a completely new environment-friendly way. I mean, earlier today I spoke to a person, an Indian, by the way. He said we are at war with nature. We can't continue like that. We need peace with nature. We need non-polluted cities, Delhi or wherever it is. People can breathe great clean air, and we need to solve the combined issues of climate change and the destruction of nature. But if young people stand up and demand change, it will happen.
Youth is a change maker. And as you said, sir, that the young climate activists are enthusiastic to change the world. I think it is the need of the hour for them to enter into politics and create environmental policies for the betterment of the world. So, we often see a tussle between people and its government to tackle climate crisis. Do you think any one of them has a major responsibility, or both of them have an equal role to play?
The main responsibility for the crisis are with the leaders of politics and business. I mean, they need to change. But for that to happen, young people must stand up and fight and demand change. And young people in India should join and demand change from BJP, which is the leading party at the moment, but from Congress, from Communist Party of India Marxist, or from all the regional parties in India. Wherever you are, go into politics and demand change from the big parties, or join smaller parties who can make change. In Europe, we have seen green parties being much stronger in nearly every nation in Europe. That has had a major impact also on the Social Democratic and Christian Democratic parties. So there has been this green wave in European politics. I don't want to recommend people any particular platform or any particular political leaders. I'm just happy if green people are joining Congress or BJP or whatever, Shiv Sena, whatever Indian party, and fight for green policies within that party.
Full on Conquer with their guide to make climate change the first criteria for the government to work on. Climate change is a major threat and cannot be dealt casually. Major problems require major solutions. So, for the government to take actions, the people need to stand up and demand for change. Thus, government and people have to work in partnership to tackle climate change. Mr. Solheim, what would be your piece of advice for the youth climate activists like me to achieve more in their work and become the future comrades of environment?
I will advise all of you to engage with your fellow students, with your parents in your community. There may be local issues, say in the Delhi region, in the cleanup of the Yamuna River, just to give as an example. So engage locally with all your people. Speak out, engage in social media, find any ways to provide your message, and then to vote for and support green political leaders, and then demand action from business. When you go into a shop, ask for the most environment-friendly product, well, very, very fast markets will change. Let me add that this is not just about climate, it's also about the crisis on nature. We have been destroying nature at a speed we cannot accept. We need to make sure that we protect all the major animals of this planet. And here also there are some good news. In India, for instance, we now see an increase in the tiger population, which is very good. Nepal became the first nation in the world which doubled the number of tigers. And you see in many parts of India, in Assam, in Rajasthan, in Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh, you see increase in tiger population. For instance, because they link the different reserves so that the tiger can go from one reserve to another, maybe to find a mate or to improve the food stock. So we should work on this matter as well. Should do tree planting, conserve the most important ecosystems, make sure that they are not destroyed. Globally, for sure, protect the rainforest and whatever important ecosystem. But I also here I see progress. And I think that progress is very often linked to this win-win proposition. You do something is good for nature, but you involve the local people so that they can get more jobs from it. And tourism is now the biggest job producer in the world, creating millions upon millions upon millions of tourists all over the world. And that can pay for if you protect the tigers. Well, you will get more tourists, and there will be more jobs in the hotels and for taxi drivers or whatever it may be.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Solheim. Your apprising words are full of cognition, which have really inspired our audience and enlightened me. You're a great leader and a fantastic mentor. I'm sure with more leaders like you, we can change the world. Humanity has a single but an important mission: to protect and hand over the planet to the future generations. Thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so pleased to speak with you, Arab, but also if there are people out there who want to connect with me, please stay in touch and let's fight for the greener, better planet together.
Sure, sir, we will fight for a green and better planet together. Thanks a lot, sir. thank you all for listening to this episode of Ring the Bell podcast. Hope it has been an amazing experience for you and would have found your takeaway from it. I feel nothing is perfect, but we should keep trying to make things perfect. So, if you feel I should add more sugar or salt to my podcast, do drop in your suggestions at rofsaid888@gmail.com. Till then, hasta luego.